someone who might be even more worse than Epstein himself. And if that was a shocker, it didn't take much time he found his own name inside the Epstein files. And honestly, my first reaction was the same as yours right now. Wait.
What if the most shocking discovery in the entire Jeffrey Epstein saga wasn't about the island, the jet, or even the secret guest lists? What if the real story began the moment Joe Rogan opened a file, saw a familiar name, and suddenly realized something that made his entire podcast studio go silent? Because here's the twist nobody expected. For years, the world believed Epstein was the mastermind, the mysterious billionaire pulling strings behind the scenes, flying powerful people around the globe, hosting elite parties, and somehow escaping consequences again and again. But what if he wasn't the boss at all? What if he was just the middleman? That's exactly the question exploding across the internet right now after newly resurfaced Epstein files revealed something strange, something disturbing, and something that even shocked Rogan himself. According to insiders, Rogan discovered his own name buried inside those documents. Not because he went to Epstein's island, not because he attended any secret parties, but because Epstein tried to meet him.
I'm in the files for not going.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm in the files for not going. Jeffrey Epstein was trying to meet with me.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah, and I was like, what?
I'm like, no thanks.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad?
Yeah, but I would have never went anyway. It's like, it's not even a possibility that I would have went.
But
especially after I Googled him. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? This was like 2017. One of my guests was trying to get me to meet him. I was like, are you high? Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
And Rogan's reaction? Are you out of your mind? But the deeper he looked, the stranger the story became. Because hidden inside those same files were hints that Epstein might have been working for people far more powerful than anyone imagined. People whose names were mysteriously redacted. People whose influence reached governments, corporations, and possibly even Hollywood itself. So the real question isn't what Epstein did. The real question is who was really above him.
There were people above him, powerful people, protected people, people whose names the government tried to erase from those files. And when Rogan connected the dots, his reaction was chilling. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll see exactly what he saw.
The strange part about the entire situation is that for years, the public believed they already knew the full story about Jeffrey Epstein. A mysterious billionaire, a private island, a jet nicknamed the Lolita Express, and a network of extremely powerful friends. That was the narrative everyone heard again and again. But the deeper investigators looked, the more the story started to feel incomplete. Because Epstein's rise to power never really made sense. Think about it. This was a man who started as a high school math teacher. No massive business empire. No revolutionary company. No world-changing invention. Yet somehow he ended up owning multiple mansions, private jets, and an island in the Caribbean where some of the most influential people on the planet visited. How does someone go from teaching algebra to hosting billionaires and political leaders? That question has bothered investigators for years. And the answer might lie with one particular billionaire who kept appearing in the background of Epstein's life, Les Wexner. Most people don't recognize that name instantly, but they definitely know his empire. Wexner was the billionaire behind the massive retail company L Brands, the parent company of the world-famous lingerie brand Victoria's Secret. In the 1990s, Wexner was one of the richest men in America. And for reasons that still confuse investigators today, he handed Epstein something almost unheard of: total financial control. Wexner gave Epstein power of attorney, meaning Epstein could legally sign documents, move money, and make business decisions on behalf of the billionaire himself. Let that sink in for a moment. One of the wealthiest men in the United States gave a relatively unknown financier the keys to his entire financial kingdom. Even stranger, Wexner later gave Epstein his $77 million Manhattan mansion, one of the largest private homes in New York City. The same mansion where investigators later claimed multiple victims said abuse occurred. So the obvious question became unavoidable. Was Epstein running things, or was someone else running Epstein? That question started spreading online like wildfire after podcaster Joe Rogan publicly talked about the files. Rogan isn't just another commentator on the internet. His show, The Joe Rogan Experience, is one of the most watched podcasts in the world. He's interviewed scientists, billionaires, Hollywood stars, and politicians. He's also known for diving deep into controversial topics. So when Rogan said the Epstein story didn't make sense, people listened. During a conversation on his podcast, Rogan pointed out something chilling. Epstein seemed less like a mastermind and more like a connector. The guy who brought powerful people into the same room. The guy who created introductions. The guy who built trust between elites. In other words, the middleman.
To my right is an email that was sent by the victim's lawyers to the DOJ. It was a list of names not to redact, a list of names not to release. What did the DOJ do with this email? They released this email in the document production. Literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, you did. And they're getting phone calls. A lot of these people didn't want to be known. And we know you touched the document because you redacted one name and you redacted the lawyer's name, but you left the survivor's name there.
And historically, middlemen in powerful circles often serve a very specific purpose. They connect the rich. They connect the influential. And sometimes they collect information. Which brings us to one of the most disturbing theories surrounding Epstein's entire operation: leverage. According to multiple investigative journalists and former intelligence analysts, Epstein's gatherings weren't just parties. They may have been carefully designed environments where powerful individuals could be compromised. Photos, videos, witnesses, the kind of material that could destroy reputations overnight. Now, imagine the power that gives someone. If you hold secrets about billionaires, politicians, celebrities, even royalty, you don't need to threaten them. You simply remind them that the secrets exist. And suddenly doors open everywhere. Business deals appear. Connections multiply. Protection quietly follows. That theory alone would already be disturbing. But what makes the story even darker is what happened next. Because when Epstein was finally arrested again in 2019 on federal trafficking charges, investigators believed they might finally uncover the full network. They expected years of court hearings, witness testimony, financial records, a long list of names. Instead, something happened that shocked the world. Epstein was found dead in his jail cell inside the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. Officials ruled it a suicide. But almost immediately, the public started asking questions. Why were the security cameras malfunctioning? Why were the guards asleep? Why had Epstein been taken off suicide watch days earlier? The timing was suspicious, because Epstein's trial never happened. And without a trial, many of the secrets buried in his network never made it into a courtroom. For some people, that meant the story was over. But for others, including Rogan, it raised an even more unsettling possibility. What if Epstein's death didn't close the case? What if it protected someone? Because if Epstein truly was just the middleman, then logically, someone else had to be sitting above him. And if that's true, the real story might still be hidden.
Your total conspiracy catalog of things that you like to dive into outside of aliens, because everybody knows that. What are your other ones that you like?
Well, aliens is the most fun one.
Yeah.
This is the one that I hate the most.
Yeah.
Because this one scares the shit out of me. Because the fear of, we talked about this yesterday with Roger Avery, the fear of these like literally demonic human beings that are running the world and don't give a fuck about human lives and enjoy watching people being tortured, enjoy watching people killed, participating in ritual sacrifice of people, and they do it in order to show that you're a part of a team. And we know that has always historically been a real thing, and it's been something that you look at in history. You go, God, it's so sick, it's so twisted, it's so disgusting, and everybody wants to think, thank God that's not happening now. But then when you realize, like, that might have been happening now.
And just when people thought the story couldn't get any stranger, the documents started appearing online. Thousands of pages, court records, depositions, emails, all connected to one name, Jeffrey Epstein. For years, the public had demanded transparency. Victims, journalists, and investigators kept asking the same question again and again. Who else was involved? So when a massive batch of Epstein-related files suddenly became public, the internet did what the internet always does. People started digging. And within hours, something unusual appeared. Names. Lots of them. Politicians, business leaders, celebrities. Some of the most powerful individuals on the planet had crossed paths with Epstein at one point or another. But here's where things became confusing. Many of those names were completely blacked out. Entire sections of documents were redacted. Paragraphs that should have contained crucial information were covered in thick black bars, which immediately raised a new question. If the goal was transparency, why hide anything? This is exactly the moment when podcaster Joe Rogan started talking about the files publicly. During an episode of The Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan explained that while browsing through discussions about the Epstein documents, he suddenly noticed something that caught him completely off guard. His own name. Yes, Joe Rogan, inside the Epstein files. Now imagine that moment for a second. You're scrolling through documents connected to one of the most infamous scandals in modern history, and suddenly your own name appears. The internet exploded. Social media instantly started asking the same thing. Wait, was Rogan involved? But Rogan quickly clarified what actually happened. Years earlier, Epstein had apparently tried to arrange a meeting with him through one of Rogan's podcast guests. When Rogan first heard the name Jeffrey Epstein, he did something incredibly simple. He Googled it, and the moment he saw Epstein's 2008 conviction involving a minor, Rogan said his reaction was immediate. No chance. According to Rogan, his response was basically, "Are you out of your mind?" He never met Epstein, never visited the island, never attended any of the parties. But the fact that Epstein had even attempted to connect with him revealed something important. Epstein was constantly trying to expand his network. Scientists, actors, comedians, politicians, anyone influential, anyone with connections, anyone who could open more doors. And this is where Rogan started asking a question that made the story even more unsettling. If Epstein was simply building connections, who was he building them for? Because according to several investigative reporters, Epstein's real talent wasn't finance. It was access. He could walk into rooms filled with billionaires. He could host gatherings with world leaders. He could introduce people who normally would never cross paths. That kind of access doesn't just appear overnight. It's usually backed by something bigger, something powerful, something hidden. And the deeper journalists looked into Epstein's world, the more they started noticing a pattern. Extremely wealthy people, international connections, and powerful institutions that always seemed strangely reluctant to push the investigation too far. Which brings us back to the same uncomfortable possibility that Rogan mentioned on his show. What if Epstein wasn't the architect of the operation at all? What if he was simply the gatekeeper, the man who connected powerful people to each other, while quietly collecting leverage along the way? Because if that's true, then the most important names in the entire story might still be hidden behind those blacked-out redactions. And that would explain why so many people believe the Epstein story is far from over.
Enough to think like this was a dangerous situation in the beginning.
During the interview, Dixon went through some of the messages he claims Perry sent him, including ones which Perry appears to reference Dixon's sex life. He also explained an alleged incident in which he claims things turned physical with the Hollywood megastar.
One of them says, what's it going to take for you to have guiltless sex? Have y'all found that in therapy yet? I would hope that you would let someone hold you and make love to you.
Now, the complaint also alleges that in January of 2020, there was an escalation from the text messages to Tyler Perry's behavior becoming physical. Can you explain that first alleged incident?
Yes. We were over at his house. We're having some drinks in his guest house, and it was late at night, and he has a guest quarters and said that you can sleep there instead of, not driving. And his house is far from Atlanta and where I was living. And I got into bed and then I noticed that he climbed into bed with me as well and started rubbing my leg. And I jumped up out of bed and he has said, turn around so I can look at you and just commented on how I looked.
And the deeper this story goes, the more uncomfortable the questions become. Because once you start looking at the Epstein network closely, something strange appears again and again. Influence, connections, protection. For years, investigators try to figure out how Jeffrey Epstein managed to move so freely inside circles that most billionaires struggle just to enter. We're talking about private dinners with global power brokers, meetings with politicians, introductions to elite academics, and invitations into rooms where the wealthiest people on Earth gather. That kind of access usually takes decades to build. But Epstein seemed to appear almost overnight. And that's exactly what made journalists suspicious. Because every time reporters pulled on one thread of Epstein's life, it led to another powerful name, another billionaire, another institution, another connection that made the story bigger. Some reporters described Epstein less like a businessman and more like a social engineer, someone who carefully constructed networks between powerful individuals who might benefit from knowing each other. Imagine it like a private club, except the membership list included hedge fund titans, royalty, tech innovators, politicians, and Hollywood figures. And Epstein was the guy holding the guest list. But here's where things get even stranger. Because according to multiple investigators who studied the case for years, Epstein didn't behave like someone who was afraid of consequences. He behaved like someone who believed he was protected. Even after his 2008 conviction, he returned to the same elite circles. He still hosted gatherings. He still traveled privately. He still managed to rebuild his network of wealthy acquaintances. Most people with that kind of criminal record would disappear from elite society overnight. Epstein didn't, which led some observers to believe there had to be something more going on behind the scenes. Something that explained why powerful people kept appearing around him, even when the controversy surrounding his name kept growing. Podcaster Joe Rogan once described the situation in a way that made millions of listeners pause. He said the most disturbing part of the Epstein story wasn't just the crimes. It was the possibility that Epstein might have been part of a much larger system. A system where extremely influential individuals quietly protect each other, where reputations are guarded, where scandals disappear, where information becomes the most valuable currency in the world. Think about it. If someone had access to compromising information about powerful figures, that person would suddenly become extremely valuable, not just as a businessman, but as a gatekeeper of secrets. And if Epstein truly held that kind of leverage, then it would explain something that has puzzled the public for years. Why so many powerful people were connected to him. Why certain investigations seemed to stall. Why some documents appeared heavily redacted. And why, even after Epstein's death in 2019, the full story still feels unfinished. Because if Epstein really was the middleman, then logically there must have been people positioned above him. People with far more power. People whose names might never appear in public headlines. People who prefer to operate in the shadows rather than the spotlight. That possibility is exactly what keeps the Epstein story alive today. Not just as a scandal from the past, but as an unanswered question that refuses to disappear. And as more documents slowly surface and investigators continue digging, one reality becomes harder to ignore. The world may know who Jeffrey Epstein was, but the mystery of who stood above him might be the most important story that hasn't been told yet.
Yeah, I'm in the files for not going, because Jeffrey Epstein was trying to meet with me.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah, and I was like, what?
I'm like, no thanks.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad?
Yeah, but I would have never went anyway. It's like, it's not even a possibility that I would ever went.
But
especially after I Googled him. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? This was like 2017. One of my guests was trying to get me to meet him. I was like, bitch, are you high? Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
For what reason would you? What would be...
If I was a guy who was like sucking up to the rich and powerful, if I was really interested in hanging out with rich and powerful people.
You know, it's crazy. That's so crazy. But yeah, some people
get intoxicated by being in a circle of rich and powerful people, even if they're not, like, they don't even have any ambitions of being one of those people. They just want to be around them. They want to be around Nobel Prize winners. And because this guy what he was doing was very clever in that he was getting all of these very powerful and very respected people together. Yeah. And you would figure like, oh,
if that guy's there, if that lady's
Clinton's
there.
Here. This is fine. Right. Clinton's here. How could this be bad?
Yeah.
Look, it's Steven Pinker. How could this be bad?
And when you step back and look at this entire story from the beginning to the end, it almost feels unreal. A mysterious financier like Jeffrey Epstein somehow builds connections with billionaires, politicians, scientists, and celebrities across the world. Private jets, private islands, mansions filled with powerful guests. Then suddenly, the entire operation collapses. Epstein is arrested. The world waits for the trial. People expect shocking testimony, hidden documents, and the truth about everyone connected to the network. But before any of that could happen, Epstein is found dead in a cell. Case closed. Or at least, that's what everyone was told. But here's the problem. The questions never stopped. In fact, the more people started digging, the more confusing the story became. Documents appeared with heavy redactions. Connections between powerful figures kept surfacing. And even voices like Joe Rogan began openly asking the question that millions of people around the world were already thinking. Was Epstein really the mastermind? Or was he simply the middleman in a much larger system? Because if Epstein truly had access to some of the most powerful people on the planet, then someone had to open those doors for him. Someone had to protect him. Someone had to benefit. And that brings us to the question that still hasn't been answered. If Epstein wasn't at the top, then who was? What do you think? Was Epstein just a wealthy criminal acting alone? Or was he part of a much bigger network that the public still hasn't fully seen? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation is far from over. And if this video made you question everything you thought you knew about the Epstein case, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories powerful people hope you never look into. Because sometimes the biggest secrets in the world aren't hidden. They're simply waiting for someone curious enough to connect the dots.